Macmillan Audio presents The Last Refuge by Ben Coes. Read for you by Peter Hermann. Their blood has washed out their foul footsteps' pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. Francis Scott Key, The Star-Spangled Banner. Chapter 1. Aspen Lodge, Camp David, Catoctin Mountain Park, near Thurmond, Maryland. President Rob Allaire sat in a comfortable red-and-white upholstered club chair. His worn LL Bean boots were untied and propped up on a wood coffee table. Allaire wore jeans and a faded long-sleeve, red Lacoste rugby shirt. His longish brown hair was slightly messed up, and there was stubble across his chin. To his right, Allaire's yellow lab, Ranger, lay sleeping. Another dog, an old English bulldog named Mabel, was napping by the fireplace, the sound of her snoring occasionally making Allaire look up. To most Americans, the sight of the slightly unkempt President of the United States might have been off-putting, perhaps even a little shocking. If Allaire looked as if he hadn't taken a shower in 2 days and had worn the same pants an entire weekend, during which he chopped half a cord of wood, hiked 10 miles, and shot skeet twice, it was because he had done just that. However, most Americans would have been pleased to see their president in his element, with his unadorned love of the outdoors, his simple joy in physical labor, his affection for his dogs. And now, at 5:15 in the afternoon on a windswept, rainy Saturday afternoon in April, his satisfaction at the sight of a bottle of beer, Budweiser to be exact, which one of Camp David's servants brought him as he sat staring into the fireplace. "Thanks, Rico," said Allaire. "You're welcome, Mr. President." In President Allaire's 6 years in office, he'd been to Camp David 122 times. Allaire would not, by his term's end, set any records in terms of time spent at the presidential retreat. That record would still belong to Ronald Reagan, who visited Camp David 186 times during his 2 terms in office. Still, Allaire loved Camp David just as much as Reagan, both Bushes, and every other president since Franklin Roosevelt had the retreat built almost a century before. Allaire loved its rustic simplicity, the quiet solitude, and he loved most the fact that Camp David allowed him to escape the backbiting, lying, sycophancy, and subterfuge of Washington. If Allaire was compared to Reagan for his constant escaping to Camp David, and for his conservative politics, that was okay by him. Allaire believed it was important to have a set of beliefs and to stick by them, through hell or high water, no matter what the polls or the prevailing wisdom said. It's why America loved Rob Allaire. Allaire sipped his beer as he stared down at the iPad, leaning closer to try and see, adjusting his glasses. He looked up. Seated on the far side of the room reading a book was John Schmidt, his communications director. "I can't read this goddamn thing," said Allaire. "You're the one who said you wanted one," said Schmidt. "Remember? It's the future and all that." "Yeah, well, I changed my mind. I'm sick of pretending I like these fucking things." Schmidt nodded. "We'll go back to the Daily Notebook, sir." "Good. In the meantime, have you read this editorial by our friends at the New York Times?" "How the hell is the New York Times editorial board aware of what's happening in Geneva?" "It's coming out of the Swiss Foreign Ministry," said Schmidt. "They're taking the credit, which is not necessarily a bad thing. To the extent it adds to the public pressure on Tehran, it's helpful." There was a knock on the door, and in stepped 2 men. Hector Calabrese, the director of the Central Intelligence Agency.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?